Our world can sometimes seem peaceful and full of hope, but there's also a darker side that's cruel and painful. On February 12, 1993, something terrible happened in a small community that still affects us today. It started when a mother took her toddler son to a butcher shop. They were happy, holding hands, but in a moment, everything changed. When she looked back, her son was gone, disappeared from the busy shopping center. What she didn't know was that two 10-year-old boys had taken the child away. In the next 2 days, what happened shocked the nation and made people question the nature of true evil. As we look into the details of these horrifying events, we confront the darkest part of human behavior. What could lead two ordinary boys to do such a terrible thing? Are they monsters, or are they just victims of a cruel world? Our journey starts in Bottle, an unassuming community tucked into the northwest corner of England along the River Mersey. This port town played a supporting role in Britain's mighty industrial era, even lending its name to the world's first propeller-driven steamship. By 1993, Bottle's glory days had long passed, leaving behind a gloomy rundown area marked by joblessness, criminal activity, and the decline of the city. It was here on Jerry Gideon Lane that Denise Bulger welcomed her third child named James on March 16, 1990. By all accounts, James was a cheerful, energetic toddler who loved following his older brothers around. His father Ralph worked long hours as a bricklayer to make ends meet. Though the Bulgers were far from wealthy, theirs was a modest but close-knit working-class family. That brings us to John Venables and Robert Thompson. Born just months apart in 1982 to similar blue-collared backgrounds, they lived just streets away from the Bulgers in cramped houses that had seen better days. As 10-year-olds, the boys already showed signs of trouble. They would often leave school just to stand around Bottle instead. Yet no one could imagine the hidden darkness beneath their boyish mischief. We'll likely never fully understand what made them target young James that fateful winter day. The story resumes on February 12, 1993. Denise arrives at the New Strand shopping center around 3:30 p.m. with her sons, including 2-year-old James, eager to explore the shops. Meanwhile, Vanderbilts and Thomas were wandering throughout town after skipping school yet again. For reasons still unclear, their playful troublemaking would take a far more darker turn that afternoon. After crossing paths with James by chance, a sinister pact seemed to be formed. When Denise stands away for just a minute at the butcher's shop, Vanderbilt grabs little James's hand and leads him away, as Thompson follows closely behind. As they venture deeper into Liverpool's shadows, this troublesome duo becomes unwilling custodians of James's fate. With each onlooker failing to step in, the toddler drifts far away as the initial signs of hope are repeatedly crushed. Beyond the smiling boy seen on CCTV, James had his whole life ahead of him. He was just 2 years and 11 months old, on the verge of learning to use the potty and brimming with curiosity about the world. At the time of his death, James showed an emerging personality, known for loving animals and playing make-believe games with his brothers. He was drawn to other children too, even toting up trustingly to the older boys who met him at the mall that day. Though he couldn't yet talk in full sentences, James was attached to his family and understood far more than his age let on. His mother Denise was said to dote on him as the baby of the family, while his father Ralph joyfully taught him soccer. With twinkling blue eyes and a mop of blonde hair, James's glow seemed to brighten all who knew him during his short 2 years of life. Ultimately, he possessed only an innocent toddler's pure capacity for joy, trust, and friendship, tragically betrayed that February afternoon. As far as James's killers, their lives took remarkably similar paths. John Venables was born on August 13, 1982 in Merseyside. His mother and father split when John was just 7, leaving him struggling at school and prone to tantrums he couldn't control. At 10 years old, John had recently returned to school after a 6 month expulsion. Friends called him cheeky and easily distracted, hinting even then at deeper volatility. Robert Thompson came into the world just days later on August 23, 1982. He was raised primarily by his mother and stepfather in Liverpool, showing difficulty concentrating from an early age. By 10, he had already had run-ins with the police over vandalism and was described as attention-seeking. Though he performed averagely at school, some noted worrying aggression and lack of empathy growing below the surface even before that scary February. With the stage now set, the fateful events began to unfold rapidly on that winter afternoon. At 3 p.m., Denise steps away from her 2-year-old James for mere moments at the butcher's shop, only to find him vanished without a trace when she turns back. At 3:42 p.m., CCTV captures Venables tightly grasping James's hand, leading him out of the mall entrance, Thompson following behind him, and this will be the last confirmed sighting of James alive. After 5 p.m. that evening, the two boys and their tiny victim started their uncalled journey. They had walked more than 2 miles with James pretending he was a lost younger brother. As it got darker, their play turned mean. The toddler cried for his mom, growing more scared, but the older boys just got more violent. Eventually, they arrived at the Leeds-Liverpool canal, dropping tiny James onto the cold concrete floor where he landed with his face. A woman passing by saw the toddler bawling uncontrollably, his hood pulled on suspiciously to hide fresh bruises. Though the boys claimed they were helping him find his mother, she kept walking, and just as many did that day. Soon, Venables and Thompson grew restless, heading away from the canal towards the rail yards. Perhaps they hoped to reach the Watson Lane police station, just across the tracks. But instead, their weakness and bad choices sealed James's fate. At the railway tracks, they hesitated, worried about being seen. Turning back towards town, Thompson took out the blue paint stolen from the shopping center, the same color found on James's body later. In a terrible moment, he poured it on the toddler's eyes as he begged for mercy. Then the violence started, the reality of which is still beyond comprehension. Venables and Thompson beat James without stopping, throwing bricks and stones at him under the dark winter sky. His cries just made the boys more aggressive, and witness could hardly believe such cruelty between children. Thompson and Venables turned into monsters, their young faces showing heartless joy. When James couldn't endure anymore, they put batteries in his mouth to silence him forever. The terrible attack reached its peak when the duo found an iron bar used on train tracks, weighing over 22 pounds. Together, they gathered enough mean strength to lift it up and aggressively harm James's skull. His broken body suffered 42 injuries, but the 10 skull fractures sealed his awful fate. When James finally lay silent in his own innocence, Thompson and Venables looked at what they did without feeling sorry. The trusting toddler who had held James Venables' hand to his demise was now a twisted pile of limbs and torn clothes stained in red. In desperate attempts to hide the truth, they planned to put James's body on the tracks, hoping that a train would smash what was left of him, making it look like a sad accident, but their childish plan failed. When CCTV images emerged, they triggered a frantic investigation to find out the mystery surrounding little James's fate. A crucial tip implicated two truant schoolboys. The discovery of blue paint on Venables' coat stolen earlier that day heightened suspicions. Despite their young age and lack of prior violence, could these wayward 10-year-olds truly be capable of this act? Detectives brought the boys in for questioning on February 19th. After 3 days of intense probing, Venables broke, providing a detailed confession that shocked authorities. Yes, he and Thompson had led James Bulger to his gruesome death. As investigators traced the twisted path that turned mischievous boys into monsters, mourners across Britain united in grief for stolen innocence. They created a makeshift shrine where James's broken body was found, laying teddy bears and pleas for justice along the train tracks in his name. Facing an impossible question of justice for an unfathomable crime, Venables and Thompson were convicted on November 27, 1993, after the longest M-word trial in Britain's history. As James Bulger's tiny coffin was laid to rest, his young enders received indefinite sentences to be re-evaluated at age 18. Public outrage surged, with protesters outside the court demanding no mercy for the notorious doer. However, behind the scenes, psychiatric evaluators identified emergent mental illnesses and traumatic home lives. Months in detention turned into years, and efforts for Venables and Thompson's redemption began away from public scrutiny. In this controlled environment, their young minds clung to faint hopes of rehabilitation if only the outside world would allow it. Fast forward to 2021, the year a parole board decree threatened to disrupt the delicate truce, giving proven enders within society under strict supervision. As Thompson and Venables prepared for release, the public grappled with the boundary between justice and vengeance. Yet, James Bulger's parents and the country weren't ready to make peace to forgive such unthinkable violence. The controversy came back, and its effects are still spreading even decades later, making questions about punishment, accountability, evil, and trauma even more unclear. What real justice means when innocence is taken away remains a puzzle that is yet to be solved. As we reach the end of this tough story, a big question remains. What can we learn from this bad event? James' awful ending made us face hard truths about people and where violence comes from. It showed problems in our systems meant to keep people safe, both for victims and those who do wrong. The legal system struggles to decide what to do with very young offenders. Should they be punished or helped? And sometimes we just ignore cries for help like the ones James made. Even though James's short life showed where our system falls short, we can find some meaning in the sadness. His smiling picture shows both the best and worst side in people. If we do find any meaning in the terrible events, maybe it's in coming together to protect innocence. Since 1993, they've made sure there are many safeguards to keep kids safe when they are alone. James' parents turned their sadness into helping centers in the UK that fight crime against children. Even though it's not much effort for those who loved him, James still makes us talk about what's right and fair, especially for young people who do really bad things. When darkness took away their son's promise that terrible February day, Denise and Rav decided to remember him by doing good. The passing of James shows humanity at its worst and its best. By looking at every choice that led to his death, we can make sure we do the right thing when it matters, even for those who hurt others. Choosing to act instead of doing nothing keeps others from going through what tiny James had to live through. Even though it's hard to figure out what's right for Thompson and Venables now, we can't forget the victim in this story. Beyond being sad about losing innocence, honoring James Bulger's short life means that we need to do better in taking care of all kids, especially the ones who need help. Parents can't do it alone. Now it's up to all of us to make things better for every kid we meet.